I didn't want what was happening to be happening. I'm losing my house. I already lost my car. I'm pregnant. I'm finna be homeless. I can't go home. And it was just the lowest feeling I ever felt in my life. I do not want to go back to that place. I was not myself. I was very, very upset. I was mad at God even for letting this stuff happen to me. Like, it shouldn't be this way, especially when you're trying to do everything for it not to happen. But for some reason, God wanted me to be at Atlanta Mission. And I didn't find that to be true until I got to my sister's house.
Hi, welcome to Unseen Atlanta, an Atlanta Mission podcast, where we shine light on some of the city's toughest issues. We share true stories from real people who are experiencing homelessness and addiction. We're also going to bring you insights from experts who give us some context to some of these issues. I'm Rachel Reynolds, and I'm one of your hosts.
And I'm Jonathan Miller, your co-host.
And we talked to Tiana today.
Yes. What really stuck out to me is just the situation she was in, nowhere to go, pregnant. And all the fear and the shame and all the feelings that go with that. I can't imagine.
I think also, too, something that she talks a lot about is mental health and how her mental health really kind of spiraled at different points in her life. And so I think that really resonates. And we wanted to make sure our listeners knew we talk about a lot of different phases of our program. We use a lot of acronyms. So we kind of wanted to let you guys know the phases of our program, kind of how it works. You're going to hear Tiana talk about this. So Restoration House is what we call our front door services. And that is the first 30 days of our program. During that time, you'll hear it in a lot of our interviews with the women. They get to rest. Mm-hmm. They get to relax. They get to really kind of stabilize themselves. Yeah. And that is really the first two phases of our program called Find Hope and Choose Help.
Yeah.
Then from there,
our women, after they choose help, they'll move over to my sister's house where they will enter into what we call Make Progress. That is the phase. So we go from Find Hope to Choose Help to Make Progress. And in Make Progress, that's where our clients spend the majority of their time working from the inside out, who they are as people, and then they'll work outward towards vocational training.
Yep.
And so that part of our program we call Next Steps, which actually happens back at Restoration House. So Tiana even talked about how she kept seeing these people dressed up, all professional, and here she is in a homeless shelter, and she has no idea who these people are, but they're screaming, and they're dancing, and they're celebrating, and she's like, what the heck is going on?
Because she's just entered the doors. So Restoration House was designed as a picture of the beginning and end of our services. So the beginning, people coming in right off the street, but they're also seeing people at the end of their program who are coming dressed for work, going through our vocational training. So it's really this holistic picture of the beginning and end of the program. And honestly, that provides a lot of hope for people.
Yeah. And they see them and they're like, I want to be there.
Yes.
I want to get there. I'm going to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talk about a lot of different places, a lot of different things. Wanted to give you guys some context to that. The Next Step program they're in, and they'll get a job out of that. And then they'll move into the final phase of our program called Sustain and Grow. And you know what? We named it after what it is. You're going to sustain and grow.
Yeah. The goal is to never come back.
Yes. We never want to see you again unless you're volunteering or want to come back and say hi. So in the Sustain and Grow portion, that's where they're going to find a job, find housing. They can stay with us in some transitional housing for a period of time, but that's really the phases of our program. Yeah. But back to Tiana. Let's hear her story.
Yeah. Let's dive in.
All right. Let's do it.
Let's just start from the beginning.
Okay.
Tell us about where you're from, your childhood. What was it like growing up?
I'm from Atlanta. I was born at Grady Hospital, 1994. I grew up mostly in my early childhood in East Point. Fast forward to fourth or fifth grade, we moved to the west side of Atlanta. And from there, we transferred to Vaseline E. Usher, which was really, really different for me because we didn't have to wear uniforms anymore. It was a more relaxed, laid-back community, but it was really, really fun and exciting. While I was there, I got transferred into the gifted program, and that kind of changed the culture of my classes because I was taking classes with older kids and stuff like that. Then after that, went to Harper Archer Middle School and then on to Frederick Douglass High School where I graduated from.
What was your home life like?
Fun, structured and just kind of family oriented for the most part. I remember most of my childhood, we were very close to family. So I was always at my cousin's house or my auntie's house on the weekends. But yeah, it was really, really structured, I say, because once I hit middle school, I started playing sports. So in seventh grade, I believe, I started playing basketball. I did that all the way through my high school career. But in high school, I also added on other sports because for training for basketball, we had to run cross country beforehand. That was really, really hard. After that, basketball season came up. 11th grade year, I kind of got into volleyball, did ROTC for a little bit.
Wow, so you were just like all into the extracurricular activities.
Pretty much. And I rounded off my year with track and field, which is also very fun. I met a lot of different people, got to travel a little bit with the sports community. I was very involved in my high school, and I liked being an honor student. So I wanted to keep that up because I wanted to get into a really good school. College, that is.
Yeah. So after high school, did you go to college?
Yes, I went to Fort Valley State University, but only went for a year. Studied animal science because I wanted to be a veterinarian, but that didn't work out because I have a really bad allergy to pets. Like I can do like one or two. I didn't notice that either. I mean, because my dad bred dogs, so I would be around a couple dogs every now and again.
Okay.
But when it got to the different types of animals, I couldn't be in that type of environment. Like, I can't be horses, goats, pigs, dogs, cats. I can't do too many different pets. So, I will break out in hives.
So why'd you only stay a year?
I just didn't want to go back. I didn't have the passion for to be a veterinarian anymore, and I didn't know what else I wanted to do, and I didn't want to be the student that just kind of stayed just to stay. I wanted to be there for a purpose, and I didn't know what that was. So I came back home and started working. I met my daughter's father. My daughter's name is Savali. Her father's name is Shaquille. And we got together and kind of lived a really, really happy life for about 5 years or so. We were together. We moved to East Point for a little bit. Not East Point, I'm sorry. We were living in Stone Mountain. We got a house in Stone Mountain, lived there, raised my daughter for the first 4 years of her life there. Ran into some financial troubles. We kind of broke up and split off. I went back home to my mom, and he went back home to his. But during that split up, I couldn't take my daughter with me, unfortunately, at the time, because I really didn't have a place to go. My mom's house was full. My grandma's house was full. Family houses were full, so I really didn't have nowhere to go. I actually ended up living with my grandmother for a little bit, for about a year, and I got back on my feet, and I got my own house, and I got a car. This was 2023. Yeah, 2023. I had a house and a car.
And is your daughter with her dad at this point?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Are you still seeing her?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I just seen her. Her birthday was November 11th.
Okay.
So that's in person. That was the last time I seen her. I just FaceTimed her last night. So she's doing wonderful.
How did you end up at Atlanta Mission?
But in the beginning of 2024, I fell behind on bills because, honestly, transparently, I was smoking, and I shouldn't have been doing that because that messed with my mind, and I do have a mental health history. So that kind of made it come up again, and I ended up going to Peachford Hospital for about a week, and they helped me kind of get my mind back right. But even when I left, for me, my experience I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and schizophrenia. So with my schizophrenia, the voices got really, really loud, and I couldn't decipher whether they were real or not. And that was very scary to me.
Is that something you've always experienced growing up?
I didn't experience that until I started smoking heavily. And that came in a part of my life where I was going through topical steroid withdrawal. I don't know if you know what that is, but I grew up with eczema. So it was kind of really hard doing that part growing up because kids are mean. Yeah. And my skin was really, really bad when I was young. Yeah. Really bad. So I was very insecure when I was young. Even though I played all these sports and became active, that was just a way of me to not focus on my skin and a way for me to still be social because I didn't want to ostracize myself because that just made me lonely.
So you had been on topical steroids for a long time?
For about, when I stopped doing it, I was like 18, 19.
Okay.
Yeah, no, when I came back from college, so I was 18, came back, I was 19. So about 19, between 19 and 20, actually, is when I stopped using the topical steroids. Since it's a steroid, it's a cortisol. It puts your body into a fight or flight, basically. And it's a stress hormone. And if you get too much of that in the body, of course, it'll make it look okay on the outside. But on the inside, you're not getting to the root problem. And when I found that out, I had to change a lot about myself. I had to change the things that I eat. I ate growing up, but I was still going through topical steroid withdrawal. So when you go through withdrawal, you can't stop it. And it was very new to me and my parents. And we kind of clashed at that point in my life, too, because they wanted me to go back to the doctor. And I necessarily didn't trust the doctors because of the overuse of steroids growing up to mask a problem that was much more internal. So I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to go natural. And it took a minute. I was dealing with withdrawal for about 3 years. During that withdrawal period, I did have my daughter at that time. So the beginning of her early childhood, I kind of had to stay at home. I really couldn't work. It interfered with my work, the withdrawal, because I did it when I came back from college. I did work at the airport, but once I started going through withdrawal, I couldn't work at the job that I was working at because my skin was shedding really, really bad. I was still having episodes. I couldn't smoke. That's one of the things they told me not to do because it will interfere with the medications that I was on. But after about 3-4 months of taking the medications, it still wasn't helping. The voices were really, really loud, and it was really hard to deal with, and that kind of impeded on our relationship as well. I was very insecure. I was very in home. I loved being a mom. I think that was the only happy time that I had during that whole process of being able to just be there to take care of my daughter. But I remember it got to a point where after my diagnosis and after I've been home, still trying to recover and stuff for a while. I remember my daughter was like 2, and I went back to the hospital. So this is like a year later. I went back to Peachford to get my re-diagnosis to see if everything's okay or not okay, and it still wasn't okay. I ended up staying a month there that time because I didn't want to be there. I hate hospitals. I really do. I hate hospitals. And mental hospitals, they have a stigma of being like a crazy house.
Right.
So that made me uncomfortable too. But they were expressing to me that my symptoms needed to be maintained in that area, in that situation. So I ended up staying a whole month. I missed my daughter's birthday. I missed her 3rd birthday. And that was very sad to me. And I didn't have nowhere to go because my parents was like, you need to stay there. Everybody told me you need to be there, and I didn't want to be there. Even though the voices were loud, even though I didn't understand what was going on, I just really had this really big fear of hospitals and that something was going to happen to me, and it just wouldn't go the way that I thought it was going to go. So I stayed there for a month. I ended up getting discharged early because I was going through a program, but I didn't like the medications that they were giving me because they were kind of just trying stuff to see what would happen. But I didn't like the after effects. Like, I had really bad tremors. I couldn't write my name for a while. I had really bad blurred vision after that. The voices got lower, but I couldn't still function. Like, I couldn't keep my focus. I didn't like the fact that I couldn't read I couldn't read, I couldn't write. I literally had to, like, kind of start over. And when I left the hospital, I went to go live with Shaquille. So that was a rebuilding period for us too, trying to cope with everything that had happened up until that point in there. So I get my life back together. After being a caregiver for my grandmother, I saved up enough money to get my own apartment and my car. I was working at Amazon and Olive Garden, and I think I was driving Lyft on the side to get extra money.
How was your mental health at this time?
It was fun.
Okay.
I didn't have any problems.
Were you managing
that.
it with medication?
Yes, for a little bit, but then no after that. I kind of self-managed. Implementing the things that they taught us in Peachford. At Peachford, they talked about coping mechanisms, journaling, writing, getting out in nature, talking to family and friends. I did that very often. And journaling. I did journaling a lot too, to help kind of bring everything that was going on in my mind on paper. So kind of actually understand what I'm actually feeling, going through, what are my thoughts, and why is this happening. And that helped. So I didn't have an episode for a while.
Okay.
Like some years. And then you ever get to a point of success where you feel comfortable and yet you still feel unfulfilled? I got to that point where I had everything. Not everything, because I wanted my daughter with me, and I didn't have her with me in either. So I think that was part of my fulfillment I didn't have. And I think I started smoking again to fulfill that need. And it kind of made it worse. So I remember I did that for like 2 days. The first 2 days were okay. Third day, voices got real loud. And I had to go to work that morning. And mind you, I worked at Amazon, so my sort that I worked is 4:30 in the morning to about 3 in the afternoon. So I had to be there really, really early. And my mom was really talking to me that morning. I went into work and I couldn't handle it. So I left. I just walked out because I couldn't handle it. I called my parents, tried to talk to them and let them know what was going on. They reassured me that everything is okay, but I just probably needed a day to myself and to not go back to that. My mom definitely did give me a scolding after that. Like, Tiana, you know you can't do that. Other people can do it, but you can't do it. And I think the peer pressure thing kind of was there too, because I was making friends at work that were engaged in those type of activities, and they can do it and they're fine. And I'm like, okay, I'm fine. I don't have those episodes anymore. I think I could do it too, but no, I can't do that. So now I'm very adamant on not smoking at all, because it's not my best self that will be reflected after that. But after that, I decided to quit Amazon and live full time, because I could figure I could make more money. Now, mind you, and during this time period as well, I'm behind on my bills. So, because I had to go to the doctor and stay for prolonged periods of time. So I'm missing work, missing money, behind on rent. And I think I switched to doing live full time and found out I was pregnant in late January.
Of 2024.
Yes, of 2024. Yep. Thank you.
I know, I'm getting our time. Okay, 2024, January, you find out you're pregnant.
Yes, I found out I was pregnant. Unfortunately, the father did not want the baby, and I was scared. And I called my mom, and she yelled at me. She said, Tiana, you got to do what you got to do now, because you can't go back. And I was really, really scared, about to lose my apartment. I kept driving Lyft, but I remember a week later, I got totaled my car. So I didn't have the Lyft job no more. It took me a month of looking for jobs to realize that, hey, you're not going to catch up on this rent at all. Called my mom. My mom had my sister, my little brother had moved back in, and my little brother was still there. They only got a 3-bedroom, so they didn't have room for me. I couldn't go back to my grandmother's house because she lives in a senior assisted living place, and you have to be like 55 up to live there. And I didn't want to get my grandma put out because that could potentially happen. And my other grandma, they didn't have room for me either there. So I was literally SOL, as they would say.
Yeah.
And my mom said, find a shelter, Tiana. You need to, because we can't help you right now.
I want to jump in.
No,
when your mom said that to you, and you heard her say, find a shelter, how did that feel?
Heartbreaking. It's not something I wanted to hear at all. At that time, I wanted to go home. Like, everything's crumbling around me, and I'm not in a good mental headspace, and all this stuff is happening, like, literally one after another. And it was very shocking to hear that your mother tell you, find a shelter.
So she says, find a shelter. You're processing that. Do you just start researching? How did you find Restoration House?
I had almost been close to homelessness before when I was living with my grandma previously, because like I said, she lives in a senior assisted living place. I didn't want to stay there for as long as I did, because every day I was in jeopardy of getting her put out. So I was looking up shelters. I found Restoration House during that time, but I didn't go. This time around, I was like, I really need to go. So I think a week later, I had a roommate at the time too, and I didn't want to bring her down in all this situation either. So I let her know, hey, an eviction may be coming, so we have to move. I'm planning on moving out. And she said, okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know ahead of time. Yeah, like I said, a week later, she moved out. And that Monday, I went to Restoration House, waited outside. I went in and gave them my information, and I still didn't want to be there. And they told me that, okay, if you come, we do have a bed available for you, but you have to move in like today or tomorrow. And you can only bring 2 bags worth of stuff. And that was defeating to me too, because like I have a whole house full of stuff. Like I have a whole house full of stuff that I have to get rid of. But I didn't have a choice. So I said, okay. My roommate gave me last month's rent, which is just her part of it. And then she even threw me a little extra because she knew my circumstances. And I used that to rent a car through Lyft. And I was still driving Lyft around that time too. But then they told me you can't have a job. And I'm like, I can't have a job. I need money. Like, I can't, like, quit my job. But she was like, well, it's one of the requirements of being here. You can't have a job. And that was a hard pill to swallow, too. Because I didn't want to be out in the cold either. Or, it was hot during that time. I didn't want to be out either. So I really had to weigh my options. And I really didn't have any. And that was frustrating in itself. So the next day, I went back to my apartment and I packed up everything that I could in my 2 little bags. It was the most heartbreaking time for me because everything kind of was settling in to me. For me, I was very, very upset. I didn't want to do it. And I remember I had a mental breakdown when I got there. I remember I pulled up to Shaquille's house, and his mom was sitting outside in her car not paying me no mind. But like I said, my mind is loud. So I'm kind of yelling at myself. And I just started screaming. I started screaming and yelling and acting a whole fool because I didn't want what was happening to be happening. I'm losing my house. I already lost my car. I'm pregnant. I'm finna be homeless. I can't go home. And it was just the lowest feeling I ever felt in my life. Lord, I do not want to go back to that place. I was not myself. I was very, very upset. I was mad at God even for letting this stuff happen to me. Like, it shouldn't be this way, especially when you're trying to do everything for it not to happen. I'm working extra shifts. I'm doing this. I'm running around from 3 a.m. to about 12 p.m. next day and waking up and doing the same thing. But for some reason, God wanted me to be at Atlanta Mission. And I didn't find that to be true until I got to my sister's house. So all throughout my stay in Atlanta, with the restoration house, I had to sit down. And that was hard. Mm. To sit down with your own thoughts and think back to what led you to that spot and have to be okay with it. Or not okay with it, but just have to take accountability for what got you there. And it was really hard dealing with a lot of women. But I was surprised at how clean everything looked inside.
I know it is. It's a little shocking when you walk in.
It is.
I call it the Ritz-Carlton of homeless shelters.
It definitely is.
It's really nice.
It's nice.
I always have to give that disclaimer to everyone. I'm like, not all of them look like this.
No, not at all. When they told me that's the newer version of like just the newest building of the Atlanta Mission, I was like, really? I was like, this is really nice.
It is. It's so nice. Yeah. What were those first 30 days like? How pregnant were you at this point?
Not very pregnant. I think I was like a month and a half. I didn't have OB. I didn't have a doctor. I didn't even have Medicaid at the time.
Did they help you get that?
I already kind of knew where to go.
Okay.
But they did provide the resources. Like if you needed to, they tell you where to go, who to call, stuff like that. But the first 30 days was very hard. It made me thankful because I had shelter, hot shower, and food. Those little things matter a lot, especially when you go outside of the restoration house and you still see men and women who choose outside homelessness in their own way. Like, I don't want to be that homeless. I want to really change my circumstances. I don't want to just be out on a bus stop with a big old cart full of stuff, trying to stay warm when it gets cold, or trying to find a quiet place to sleep. I don't want to be that homeless. So I was grateful to be out, not on the street.
How were the voices in your head?
They were still there, very much so. I pretty much stayed to myself most of the time, just observing new people coming in, participating in classes, being able to share. That helped a lot. Actually. being able to share. Listening to other women's stories was very eye-opening and humbling at the same time, because you think this is the end-all, be-all. Like, I'm living the worst life in the world. But then you hear somebody else's story from childhood up until now, and it's way worse. It just makes you rethink your circumstances. Like, it's not as bad as you think it is. It's really not. And really trying to accept that for yourself. Because some people, I've noticed sometimes people get really selfish in mindset and think about me. There's a lot of me's that come through Restoration House. But when you get in a group setting, it's not me anymore. It's us. And as women, us being social creatures, it's a little bit easier for us to open up when we have somebody kind of going through the same thing. And it also helps us empathize with ourselves, to not be so hard on ourselves, because I think that's what keeps it a me thing, because you're kind of talking down to yourself most of the time, like, how did I let this happen? Why did I do that? And all this other stuff that really doesn't help your life or your story. It just makes it really dim in your mind.
Were you surprised at the community that was forming?
Yes.
With these women?
Yeah. Progressing through Atlanta Mission, most definitely. At Restoration House alone, just waking up every day and hearing people cheering and laughing.
I know, it's loud up in there.
Yes, it does get loud. And now that I'm in Next Steps, I remember when I was at Restoration House coming in, we have to sit downstairs, and the Next Steps people come upstairs, and we always wonder, what are they cheering about? What are they dancing? What are they chanting up there? And we just see them in their business clothes walk by when we're going through lunch and stuff like that. And I'm just like, oh, okay. I didn't know who they were at the time. I just seen some people walking through. But he was like, yeah, they made it to like almost toward the end of the program. And I was like, oh, okay. And then when we were talking to our counselors or advocates, I forgot what they call them at Restoration House, about choosing help and find hope, choose help.
Make progress.
Thank you. Moving on to make progress.
Yeah.
And you have that choice, whether just to stay to 30 days or do you want to continue to keep going. And in my predicament, I said, I'm going for the long run.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Well, and you had Legacy, your son, at
My sister's
house. How was that experience?
I was prepared by the time I actually did it, because I finished my classes before. Yeah. That's why I made it to Next Steps like right afterwards. But going through the classes helped prepare me for that part, because I was able to express in my processing classes with Miss Shay and Miss Pat about concerns that I had, and then hearing feedback, like going to the hospital and not being treated well, or having CPS come take your baby, or your baby might die or something like that. I don't know. Just those concerns of being in a hospital setting, I was able to express my fears and get comfort, get reassurance, and get women to come around me and really kind of lift me up and make me not scared of the process, but just know that, hey, it's okay. What you're going through, it's okay. I've had those fears too, going to the hospital with my baby. I've had those fears too, being by myself without the father. I've had those fears too, just thinking that you're alone, and you're not. Having that support is really what helped me prepare for that day. And by the time it actually came, I was ready. I was tired of being pregnant and big. Right? I was wobbling everywhere. My friends would walk past me and be like, ooh, we wobbling together. And I'm like, stop. You're not wobbling. I'm wobbling. It was hard. Yeah. Because it hurt.
But you were able to bring him back to my sister's house? Mm-hmm. I can imagine he's probably like, he runs that place.
You know
I bet
what?
they love him.
They do.
Yeah.
And he knew where he was. I remember coming home. It was crazy. Coming home from the hospital, like the day after my birthday. We stayed 2 nights because he was born at 3 a.m. on the 29th. So we stayed the 29th and then the 30th. And we were able to come home the next day. And he was crying the whole time. Like the whole time crying on the way back to my sister's house. But as soon as we pulled up in the driveway of my sister's house, he just stopped crying.
He said, I'm home.
Apparently, he's like,
He's like, they're going to love me here.
that they do.
He was getting good vibes.
The whole time. All the women be like, oh my God, Legacy, I can't wait
know.
for you to be here. They want to rub and touch my tummy and be like, oh, I can't wait for you to have him. Like, me too. I'm tired of being pregnant. But when we got there, we came back to love and support.
Good.
And luckily, before he came, I was able to move to a designated room just for
great,
mothers.
Yeah. So you felt support.
Yeah. How is because you're in next steps now.
Mm-hmm.
So Legacy goes to childcare, right?
Yes, he does.
How is that experience? How are his teachers?
Initially, I was very skeptical. I didn't want that to happen. I wanted to be with him every second of the day. But once, I remember the first day I dropped him off, and I met his teacher. She was a sweet lady. She really is. She's so sweet. And then, like, a couple days later, they got a new lady to help, like a support teacher.
Yeah.
And she introduced herself to me because we just happened to meet her outside. And she was real nice, too. So, and she was like, I can't wait to meet him. Because he was still, like, young. I think he was, like, 4-5 weeks, maybe, before he actually went in there. But they got to see him in passing. But they treat him like he's their own.
Oh,
for sure.
I can only imagine. They love those babies.
Man, I love those babies. All those babies that come through there. And then the fact that we're getting more now. I think we have 3 young ladies that are pregnant and expecting.
Wow.
2 of them in my room literally just had babies within the past 2 weeks. So it's like baby fever for sure in my sister's house. And it's amazing. Amidst all the pain and heartache and frustration that the women go through there, inside and outside of my sister's house, to see little babies give hope.
I know.
They give a lot of hope and reassurance and smiles, and they're just so loving. Like, even when I seen my baby, I was happy. I got really happy after that.
But it's so true. There's something about, like, new life and innocence that totally changes a space. And especially with what you're saying, like, you would think a homeless shelter would be a place that has a lot of sadness and hardships, and which there's all those things. But I think that's what's so cool about my sister's house is there's something so unique about the space of having all the kids there with you, because it gives you this, like, sense of hope. It gives you a sense of purpose. And it really shows you that, like, at the end of the day, you hope that for these little kids, their life is totally different.
Most
so
definitely.
I think that that's something that's so unique about our spaces, and particularly my sister's house.
I like it. I love kids.
And I think your story really shows that, of, like, how you were at your lowest point, but growing a new life, which is supposed to be one of the happiest times in your life.
Right.
You end up at a homeless shelter. And it can seem like it could be a really not positive experience, but
very
Legacy's
disheartening.
now running the child care center. Especially, too, like you showing, there's so many moms out there, especially at my sister's house. We have babies born all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's something people don't understand about homelessness is it's like a lot of people end up homeless when they're pregnant.
Yeah.
And
They do.
and so I think
Way
your
more than I
stories-
thought about.
Yeah,
growing up.
totally.
I didn't think about being at a homeless shelter at all. And my mom, like, before I became homeless, my mom gave to the homeless. She still does. She gives to the homeless. So I didn't see a lot of homelessness with, like, mothers with children being homeless. I didn't see a lot of that growing up.
Yeah.
But as I got older, I saw the reality of the world, and people go through struggles. And then me becoming one of those people is definitely different.
Yeah.
What I thought about when I was younger, too.
So, Tiana, what does the future look like for you?
Honestly, right now, trying to get through next steps. I'm going to get through next steps.
Not trying.
Nope.
Come on.
You
I'm
are.
going
Name
to
it and
get through
claim
next
it.
steps. Yep, and I got 2 weeks left.
Yes, girl.
And I'm finna put in the work to make sure I
Yep.
get to the end.
We'll be at your graduation. We'll come to your graduation.
Yeah.
Oh, please. I can't wait to see what it's like, because I've been
Oh, it's
hearing
so
the previous
fun. It's so
cohorts
fun.
do their graduations.
Yeah,
And
you're
I'm
gonna love it.
really trying to get SOE. So,
Send out eligible.
That's right.
Yes.
Send out eligible.
yep, really trying to get SOE. But honestly, after next steps, I want to go into childcare. work at a daycare, get in my CDA so that I can start my own in-home daycare.
Great.
Because that's my later goal. My aunt inspired me on that because she had one when I was growing up. She doesn't anymore, unfortunately. But I remember going over her house and seeing her in-home daycare and how it was set up. And then having my own child at home, or my first daughter at home. I like that part. Setting up the posters and getting the tables together, having an area to play arts and crafts, helping them learn their ABCs, their 1, 2, 3s. I was teaching my daughter Spanish and sign language when she was like 2 and 3. So that was really fun.
Yeah.
Seeing how easily they catch on and how fun you can make it.
You'll for sure do that.
Yeah.
We're excited.
It'll be great.
We're going to follow. I think we're going to follow along on your journey.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see
absolutely.
you graduate. I'm excited to see where you go. I'm excited to
I want to ring that bell.
Yeah. Oh,
You're
ring that
ring
bell,
that
girl.
bell.
Thanks for sharing your story.
Oh, I appreciate you
I
guys for having
really,
me.
I think the people listening are going to really love hearing your story. You have so much resiliency in yourself, and you sound like an amazing mom. The future's really bright for you. So I appreciate you sharing your story and taking the time. We hope you guys enjoyed that story. I know we did. So grateful for the generosity of these stories. And right now we want to bring you another subject matter expert to give a little context to this story. We have someone who's a great friend of Atlanta Mission. She has worked with us in the past and helped build Restoration House. She is an expert in homeless trauma-informed design. So we are excited to have Dr. Jill Pable here today. Hey.
Hi there. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
We'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about what you do. I know she just retired. You just retired in August, but had a long career. So we'd love for you to tell us about that.
Yeah, my background is in architecture and interior design. And my area of research is trauma-informed design and looking at built environments for people who are in crisis, whether they are experiencing homelessness or other types of things. I worked for Florida State University for 19 years, having just retired in August. And before that, I was a tenured associate professor in California State University, Sacramento, and prior to that in Missouri. So been here, there, and everywhere. But I also started a nonprofit organization called Design Resources for Homelessness. And its purpose is to translate and curate needful research for support organizations, the public, and government leaders and student researchers on how to build in a way that best supports people who are in crisis. So it's been very rewarding, and it's taken me all over the United States and Europe, looking at how people build and offering lectures and so forth on how we might be able to do that better.
Well, I know you did work with us through Restoration House. So we'd love to talk a little bit more with you about why it's important to have trauma-informed spaces.
I think what we're talking about here is trauma-informed design. Trauma-informed design still isn't quite gelled yet, I would say, but it arose from the trauma-informed care movement in psychology and social work. The trauma-informed care movement looked at how can we best help people who are in crisis. And it really turned on its head previous ways of looking at how to offer these services. Whereas before it was very authoritative, very top-down, very kind of hierarchical, trauma-informed care emphasized empowerment and giving people control over their futures and helping them and working alongside them to develop a program for them to exit their crisis and exit homelessness and so forth. Trauma-informed design picks up with those ideas as well, but it takes the extra step of looking to see how can we take the ideas from psychology and social work and bring them to a place where we can actually make people feel empowered in space, make them feel less crowded, help them retain their dignity and so forth with the help of the setting around them. So it's a super exciting area. It's a super needful area. And it's an area that's really under construction and being figured out by a lot of researchers right now. And it's really picking up steam, which I'm thrilled to see.
I'm just curious, what does that look like? Like, help us visualize how empowerment translates to a physical space.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, isn't it? And I've been really interested to see that it's not necessarily the big, expensive things in a space that can help preserve dignity and so forth. Sometimes it's small things. For example, let's say that you're living in a supportive housing complex and you live in, room 24. When you come into room 24, it looks like all the other rooms, so it's a bit anonymous. What if we put a changeable plate next to the door that lets somebody write their name? So all of a sudden, we're letting somebody proclaim who they are, maybe positively claim some space, lay some territoriality to it, and let them just simply say out to people, this is who I am. I'm a real person, and I'd like to get to know you and start some friendships and so forth. We could do the same thing on a bunk bed, for example. How we give people choices of where to sit, choices of what kind of chair to sit on, because bodies are of different sizes and people like to sit in different ways. Maybe instead of, telling somebody you can't have a glass of water, maybe we set out a station or a water fountain so people can go get their water when they're ready. So they're retaining their dignity, they're empowered, they are able to help themselves. Because one of the biggest things we're trying to counteract is just a sense of hopelessness. Learned helplessness is what it's called. When somebody becomes helpless, they really put up personal barriers to actually getting help and exiting their crisis. So as the more we can empower and the more we can retain somebody's dignity, the better off we will all be. So,
well, I love that it's like the small things. We were actually talking to one of our clients, and he said that when he was in prison, he thought he would never be able to turn a light on and off.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just reminded me of what you were saying of like, it's the small things that make the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how accessible these concepts are.
Like, I'm like, what do I need to change in my house right now?
It's not a big building project.
Yeah.
It's like putting a water fountain out, or a water cooler or something small. Like those are little steps that I think anybody could take in their business and their environments just to provide a better experience.
Well, and it's also like I'm connecting the dots a little bit because I'm like, when you talked about adding your name to the bedroom, that's something like we got to do as a kid. Like if you're most people who are living in a home environment, you're doing that. Yeah. But with something like homelessness, you talked about this when you talked about trauma-informed care, is we institutionalize it. And we take we've extracted the humanity out of it. And so it's like, how do you infuse that back in? Because it is a part of the human experience. So it's like at some point we stripped that away.
There are forces acting against, a sense of care and so forth that I really empathize with support organizations, because we want to help as many people as possible. We want to get as many people in off the street as possible to give them care and so forth. But when we start to, emphasize that sort of assembly line sort of thing, that can become a little sterile. It can become a little dehumanized. And I think something is lost if we, forget about the fact that everybody's different and everybody's going to look at empowerment differently and everybody's going to have a sense of dignity differently. And people who have children are going to look at that with different priorities than somebody who does not. My current work is with people with support animals or animals of different kinds. How do we help them, regather their lives together in a shelter with their animals? So it's just a very individualized thing we need to look at here in order to keep the humanity injected into it.
I'm going to go take inventory of my house.
Well, what's interesting is that as we start to kind of understand what trauma-informed design means, we're starting to see that it means empowerment, dignity, safety, community, beauty, stress control. All of those things are what all of us want. This is not something exclusive to somebody who's experienced crisis, although they may need them more. But it's all about this complex term called ontological security. You know that feeling you feel when you get home from work and you can come back to your apartment or your house and you can kick off your shoes, lay down your purse, take off your coat, just get yourself a drink out of the refrigerator and sit on the sofa, and how nice that feels? That's ontological security. That is this feeling of, I'm okay for the moment, the world's okay, I'm able to, be all right for a moment. Nobody's looking at me and so forth. That's the feeling that's very helpful to keep in mind as a goal for, communal sorts of living situations as well.
Well, thank you so much, Jill, for being here today. I feel like this really showed me a lot about how empowerment is such a vital piece of kind of trauma-informed design, trauma-informed care for our clients. We really hope that our listeners were able to get a little more insight into why it's so important for us to treat our clients with dignity, treat them with care, give them this empowerment. So we hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Jill Pable, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening and engaging with these challenging yet vital conversations about mental health, addiction, homelessness, and trauma in our city. Facing these issues head on is how we ignite real transformation in Atlanta.
Thank you to our season sponsor, the Scott Pryor Law Group. The transformation you've heard wouldn't be possible without incredible partners like the Scott Pryor Law Group, personal injury and accident attorneys. Their compassion and dedication to our community fuel stories of transformation just like these. If you are injured in a semi-truck or car accident, call the Scott Pryor Law Group. As a U.S. Marine, we fight and win for you. Our clients are family for life. We handle all types of injuries. You focus on healing, and we handle the rest.
Now, if today's episode inspired you to take the next step, we would love to invite you to join the work that God is doing here. There are two really impactful ways for you to get involved. First, you can give financially to help us continue the work you heard about today. Second, you can volunteer your time by serving at one of our campuses. You can find all the ways to give and get involved at atlantamission.org. Thank you again for being part of this journey. Please join us next time as we uncover more powerful stories of hope and transformation.